I do want to just touch on one more thing that you said, Seamus, because I think it's a really, really good point. Something we've talked about really as the year has progressed so far, and that is getting Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum going, right? And it feels like maybe we're starting to see that on their play recently. We know how good Derek White, although really we're going to talk about Derek White in a little bit later on this episode. He has not been so hot this year, but we know how good our role players can be. Peyton Pritchard, Porzingis, Holiday, White. I mean, the list goes on. But what makes this Celtics team so special are their two superstars, Tatum and Brown. We're starting to see it now. We've seen it from Tatum kind of as the years progressed here consistently. Brown is kind of starting to get fire again. How good, guys, are these two guys, Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum? Are they both top 10? I'm sorry. I just need to know. Are they both in that realm? Because we know Tatum. But personally, the year Jaylen Brown has had, I mentioned Sports Illustrated Player of the Year. That's not nothing. I really do believe this guy is in that top 12 realm of NBA players.
Well, I avoid talking about hypotheticals because Justin will just spawn out of nowhere and start saying radio boy and calling me out on my bad takes. But imagine if Jaylen Brown was on another team this year. I think he would be having the types of performances that Tatum's been having, and he would be able to carry a team. I don't think we would be seeing the inconsistency as much out of Jaylen Brown, and I think he really knows how to be a captain on a team. So I think what would be a good random team just flop him on to. Let's throw him on
the Atlanta Hawks.
If he was on the Atlanta Hawks right now, the Atlanta Hawks would be in a better position. I would say they would be a top 4 team in the East, and they would be competing with us when it gets down to the second or third round, just because of the character that he brings to the table and the skill that he brings to both sides of the floor. When you have someone who is a star level player making as much money as he is, still making hustle plays and carrying the transition offense throughout the game and honestly throughout the season, like he has for the Boston Celtics, that as your second option is almost unfair to anyone else. And it kind of hurt. It doesn't hurt Brown that he's on the super team of a lot of talent, but it kind of just equates him and doesn't really. He would just stand out anywhere else. That's the sum of it all.
Me and Seamus talked about just the other night was the uniqueness of the upbringing of Jaylen Brown to stardom. This guy was a role player. He is not like other stars. He has needed to gain the intangibles and the little things to become a star and to get his flowers. So I feel like that's the uniqueness you get out of JB, and not many stars have that. We've said that. We've talked about that before, Seamus.
Yeah, and also I'll bring up this conversation we talked about the other night where we're saying, well, Jayson Tatum, he is kind of negated in the MVP conversation just a little bit because of the team he's on, and he's disrespected in the MVP conversation because of the team he's on. Well, we talked about that with Jayson Tatum in the MVP conversation and the top 5 conversation, particularly in regards to Tatum, yet with Jaylen Brown, we can bring that up for him in the conversation of top 10 player in the NBA. I believe if Jaylen Brown, speaking hypothetically, of course, as Franco said, if he was on another team, he would be more in that conversation of, is he a top 10 NBA player? Yet when he's slotted behind Jayson Tatum on the Celtics, and the rest of the Celtics are such a good team, I think Jaylen Brown, the talents of Jaylen Brown, they're looked over a lot because we always think, oh, Jayson Tatum, oh yeah, and they have White and Holiday and Porzingis, and they have this just bunch of riches everywhere else, and Peyton Pritchard emerging as the 6th man of the year. Yet people forget you need multiple superstars at the top of your roster in order to win a championship like the Celtics did last season. And of course, the finals MVP was Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown won finals MVP because he was the best player in that series. He was the best player in the conference finals. And of course, Jayson Tatum played a huge part as well. But Jaylen Brown, if he wasn't there, who knows what happens with last year's Celtics team? Are they as dominant? Do they still win the title? Speaking completely hypothetically here, as we have to do with the embarrassment of riches the Celtics have, but it's the same conversation with Jaylen Brown as it is for Jayson Tatum in terms of best player in the league or top 10 player in the league. They're both looked over in a lot of conversations because of the talent around them and the team the Celtics are. But ultimately, they are the catalyst of what makes the Celtics machine run. And if the Celtics didn't have those top two superstar players in Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown, the Celtics team would not be the same whatsoever. And Jaylen Brown this year, he's been up and down, but we see the consistent stretches when he can really get it going. After a couple wake up calls, we think last year didn't start the season so hot, but in December, once it was really in his mind that I need to turn up my level here, which right now I believe the whole team is on after this recent stretch of losing 3 of the last
Right.
4. But particularly with Jaylen Brown, when he has that motivation that, oh, I'm not only going to be a scorer here, I'm going to be a playmaker. I'm going to play within the offense as we saw tonight. I'm going to be a good defender, because we have seen stretches in Jaylen Brown's career where he's a great defender, but sometimes might become a little bit complacent, as superstars do from time to time. But when he is on his game, he can certainly be a top 10 player in the NBA, no doubt.
That's so funny that you say catalyst, because you can go on our Instagram and you can scroll down on the reel section just about 2-3 months now, and you will find a video called captioned catalyst with a picture of Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown standing next to each other, where we talk about that. And that is like that they are, and Jaylen Brown really is the catalyst for what makes the Celtics so special. And, we talk about Tatum this year has been kind of the magician behind the Celtics offense. He has kind of been the guy that is kind of, finagling the strings of this team. He's done a phenomenal job at that. But what gets underlooked, and I'll take it with my chest, I underlook it and undervalue it sometimes with Jaylen Brown, is the other things he does that Tatum doesn't. Brown gets these guys up ready for war. Brown gets these guys ready to go. He's really stepping up into this lead of the vocal leader, and I think that should not get underlooked. I completely agree with you. He is in that category of top 10. You look at him, I think he's better than Brunson. I think he's in the conversation to be up there with guys like Anthony
Brunson
Edwards.
Can't defend. We
Yeah,
got a 6'6" wing in Jaylen Brown who can, look at tonight, 4 steals. Pacers can't get by him.
And I think it's not crazy to say that Jaylen Brown is a top 5 two-way player in this league. So, I mean, really, it is very easy to underlook and undervalue what Jaylen Brown means to the Celtics team. But you look at his upbringing, you look at his, his rise to stardom. It is truly unique, and it is very, very, very deserved that Jaylen Brown had won Sports Illustrated Player of the Year. Kind of going back to that. So big shout out to Jaylen Brown.